all of you and everyone across America and the world who's celebrating this week and participating in service today. I'm Dominique. I'm a volunteer with KindWorks, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to make it easy to make a difference. They arrange service projects and you can drop in on many of them. It's just a wonderful way to connect with other people. And I have found, even though I've been involved for years and it's been such a meaningful part of my life, that during the pandemic, it has been particularly meaningful. Kind Soup for the Soul is a weekly project that we do from Saturdays from 5 to 6, where a guest chef leads us in preparing a soup. We make enough for our household and another 4 quarts to share, either with the food insecure in our area or someone who could just use a little bit of kindness. I've shared with elderly neighbors, with a family with a new baby, with someone who's sick, as well as to the organizations that share the food with the food insecure. And we've gotten lovely notes back about what it means to people. Deb, I think we've donated probably over 500 or 600 quarts by now.
Yeah, and we may double that number today in true kindemic form. Yeah.
And I'll let Deb talk a little bit more about the kindemic. We have labeling instructions as well as all the locations in the DC area that are ready to get the soup. But if you're coming from another area, feel free to just share with someone who could use a little bit of a lift. What I love about this is every Saturday from 5 to 6, it's like I have friends in my kitchen cooking with me, and it's just fun. We chat, we tell stories. We won't be able to do as much of that today because there's 100 of us here on the Zoom, but it's just a terrific experience. I'd love to introduce Deb Lang, who's our executive director. She will be leading with me today and suggesting the meat alternatives or the meatless alternatives.
Hi, and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited that you found us, and we hope you come back and do KindWorks with us soon again and often. Since our group is so large today, everyone is asked to please keep your mute button on. And when you have a question about what we're doing or anything that we're chatting about, go ahead and hold your space bar down so that you are unmuted for the length of your question or comment. We want to put any process questions that people have about how to deliver the soup or how to record where you've donated your soup in the chat box, so we don't fill our time together today with process questions. Thank you so much for respecting those 2 rules, and back to Dominique for the cooking.
Sounds good. If you know anybody who can't get on the Zoom, we're on Facebook Live as well, so just go to the website. I am going to start by melting my butter. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm melting my butter, and we're going to start frying up the vegetables, the carrot, the onion, and the celery, which is going to give it just another nice little depth of flavor. And I've got my stock here already in the pot. I used Better Than Bouillon. You can use store-bought stock, homemade stock. This is the chicken. They also have a vegetable if you're doing vegetarian. So any stock will do. And we're actually adding in, you know, the very typical stock vegetables, carrots, onions, and celery. And that's all over the world. Here in the States, this was Martin Luther King's favorite soup, according to what we read online. It's a pinto bean soup. It would have been traditionally made with ham hocks to flavor it. I am using a store-bought ham because we use these for holidays a lot. And so I always just slice off chunks to flavor beans and stuff. Deb is going to give us a couple of other alternatives. Ham hocks would have been traditional. I often buy a ham on the bone and I save the bone and use that to flavor soups or beans, because in my family tradition, my grandmother's from Haiti, this was really commonly used to give a nice smoky depth of flavor and not waste any meat.
And so for the non-pork alternative, we're using a smoked turkey pieces. We tried this a week or 2 ago, Dominique and I, and it came out absolutely deliciously. So smoked turkey, if you want to make, if you're not wanting to stay away from meat but don't want to use pork. And if you want to not use meat at all, we suggested adding some smoked paprika and some canned chipotle chilies and adobo because they both have such rich smoky flavors.
And I use smoked paprika a lot. I won't be using it in mine because the ham does give it all the smoky flavor it needs. But I use it in beans, sometimes a little bit in like a tomato sauce. It's a great ingredient just to add an interesting depth of flavor.
There's a question from Jenny. Can we use canola oil instead of butter? And I think, Jenny, you sure can, but the butter is going to give it, a richness that the oil may not.
And I might, if I was going to substitute oil, use olive oil if you have it, because I think it has a depth of flavor that canola is supposed to be very neutral. So you're not just trying to add some fat for flavor, you're trying to add the flavor of the fat. In this case, butter, but I think olive oil might be a little tastier. But canola will be fine, it just will be more neutral. So I'm starting to add in my vegetables, which I've uncharacteristically prepped very early today. I wanted to mention with celery, I got hearts this time, but we usually throw out the leaves. And I discovered years ago, I was making a British soup and they called for lovage. And I'm like, what's lovage? I don't know. And I looked up and celery leaves are a good substitute. So feel free to throw a few in. I wouldn't throw tons in because it'll throw off the flavor. They taste just like celery.
So Mira's asking, should the meat be cooked with the vegetables? Yeah, in the recipe, you'll see that after you sweat the diced vegetables with the butter and add the garlic, at that point you will then add the meat, or your alternatives, and the collard greens, the beans, and the stock. Karen's asking about the collard greens, Dominique, which parts to include?
I include everything. I haven't cut them yet because I just thought they were so gorgeous. I wanted to admire them together. And what I do is I put them in a pile and I do like ribbons. And then sometimes if the ribbons are too long, I'll cut it crosswise so that they're more bite-sized ribbons. But I don't do the hardest part. Yeah. Since this is a soup that's going to simmer for a while, you probably could. I'm just going to compost them. But they're so hard on collard greens. Chard is softer. Collard greens, they're really, really hard. But again, I bet you could throw them in and cook them down. I just haven't done it, so I'm not going to.
Okay, thank you. And Marge is asking about draining the pinto beans. Yes, if you're using canned beans, you will want to rinse them.
I did also cook my beans in my Instant Pot this morning, and I drained them because what happens if you don't drain them, it will make the soup cloudy. This soup has a pretty nice clear broth. And I think you want to drain just for that reason so that you don't muddy the soup. If you were making a stewy kind of thing, you could, if they were fresh beans, I would just leave the water. Canned beans, you would just have to kind of, assess. But in a soup like this has a beautiful clear broth. I have to tell you, I delivered this to a family who had a new baby, and they texted me and they said, we were like vultures fighting over the last bit. So I hope you enjoy it as much as our family did and the family with the new baby.
Cheryl's asking how much better than bouillon per quart? She can't figure it out.
It says it on here, so I think it's a teaspoon per cup. Hold on a sec. 1 teaspoon per 8 ounces. So 1 teaspoon per cup. So 4 teaspoons for a quart, which is, a little over a tablespoon. A tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So you're going to be using about 4 tablespoons of better than bouillon for 4 quarts. I get this at Costco. You can get it at the grocery store, but it's cheap at Costco. They have a lot of flavors online. They have a garlic base. They have all kinds of things. But I've only tried the beef, chicken, and vegetable. And the vegetable one is delicious. I like it a lot better than vegetable stocks you can buy in the box. So my My vegetables are sweating away. And somebody asked about putting the meat in here. You don't need to, but you can. The recipe calls for throwing it in the stock. That's what I did. And I will show you, since I'm just using, if you were using ham hocks, you would just throw the whole ham hock in the stock. With meat, I usually, because I serve this at holidays, I'll throw a bunch just in the freezer and I throw it in whole. And then once it's cooked down, it shreds very easily. So if you see the picture on the website, it had kind of shredded into little ribbons of ham. But you can also dice it if you want. I diced a little bit just to show you. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in the stock now so it can start flavoring the stock. It's never too much time for the meat to flavor the stock.
And if anybody has a question that hasn't been answered and they put in the chat, go ahead and you know, one at a time, just feel free to use the space bar and ask your question or whatever comments you have. Thank you.
Now we're going to put some garlic in with the vegetables now that they've started to soften a little. It says a tablespoon. I usually go heavier. I love garlic. This is just the minced garlic from Costco. I'm quite a lazy cook. It's a time saver. If I was doing something fresh like a vinaigrette, I would do it otherwise, but I find for cooked applications, this works really well.
Hi, I've asked a couple times, how much smoked paprika for the vegetarian version?
I'm going to suggest doing that to taste. I would start with a pot this big with maybe 3/4 teaspoon. Let it cook down, you know, a little bit and then taste it. We don't want that to be the main flavor. This isn't like chicken paprikash or something. This is just to replicate the slight smoky flavor of the meat that is starting to cook into the broth. So I would start with 3/4 teaspoon max, maybe even a half, and then taste it in 5-10 minutes, the broth when it's hot. Are you starting to taste the smoke? If not, add a little bit more. If you're using chipotle, you could, the chipotles in a can come with a nice thick sauce. You could just take a teaspoon of the sauce and put it in, or even chop up a little bit of the chili. I wouldn't put too much of it in. Again, taste it. Are you getting a delicate smoky flavor? That's what we're going for. And then do it to taste what tastes good to you. We tested that recipe. It was really nice as well.
A question about the collards.
Yeah.
So I bought a bag of pre-cut because I'm also lazy. Cut collards. So I'm just wondering about how many ounces, you know, what's the approximate weight of your bunch in the recipe versus, you know, because my bag is measured in ounces.
You know, this is a pretty big pot of soup. And if it's one of those standard salad bags, I'd throw the whole thing in because greens shrink. I ended up getting 2 bunches of collard, which I think is probably going to be too much, but the bunches were smaller than last time. So I'm just guesstimating. And the nice thing about greens is you can always add more later.
Right. Thank you. I think I have about 8 cups here, probably, of the raw.
That's going to be fine. It's going to shrink down a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're almost ready to put our vegetables into the soup. I'm going to cook mine just a little bit more because I want them to almost start to caramelize just for the flavor. So Deb, while we're waiting for a few minutes, or Salma, do you have any, you know, we could share a little bit perhaps just to, because there'll be a few waiting times when we're simmering. So it might be a time, just make sure you unmute yourself and then mute yourself when you're done talking.
How about we introduce Salma, who is KindWorks Chief Inspiration Officer, if she's got a minute to say hi.
Sure. Well, welcome everybody and hi. Welcome to Kind Soup for the Soul. It's so nice to be with you all, at least over Zoom, and feel a sense of community from our respective kitchens as we're simmering our soup. Really excited to have you, and this is one of my most favorite projects. Dominique and Deb, I am sure you both agree as well. It's just such a feel-good project, as all of our projects are, but this one in particular is just the idea of cooking nourishing, nurturing soup, and then sharing it and seeing the smiles that it and the surprise that it brings to people that we share it with. You know, I once gave one to my postman, to my son's friends who I miss seeing in our kitchen, who I used to love to feed when they'd come over. So it's really a wonderful feeling of giving and being together and cooking in community. So welcome. And this is, I'll just add, this is part of a much larger effort that KindWorks launched, which we call the Kindemic. It's a pandemic of kindness. We have so many projects every single day of the year, different ways in which we can all give back to our communities. Some of them are organized projects through KindWorks, but we encourage everybody in any corner of the US and around the world to just look out for opportunities in your own communities, to do good, to serve others, just to share a smile with somebody. So join the Kindemic. Visit us on our social media, which is at Do KindWorks, on our website, which is www.dokindworks.org. Join our email and look forward to seeing you again.
I'm just finishing chopping my collards right now. So here's what they look like, and you can see the ribbons. Some of them are a little long, so I'm just going to chop them a little bit smaller.
Could I ask, are we supposed to already be cooking the broth with the ham, or is that just waiting in a pot?
Oh, I had my broth. Yes, I would be cooking it, and we threw in the meat a few minutes ago. Sorry if I wasn't clear. I would go ahead and get that, you know, heating so that it can start to get the flavor of the meat in.
And I'm sorry, I'm kind of, I'm not a great cook. Do we, like, are we supposed to get it to a boil, or is it just simmering?
I would get it to a boil if it's not warm already, and then just let it simmer.
Okay, perfect. And no beans added yet?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Marina, I'm excited to have your family tell you what a great cook you are after this soup.
Oh, okay. They loved it last time, I'll tell you.
I'm using smoked turkey drumsticks. How many of them should I use?
Deb, you did the smoked turkey.
Yeah, I used 3. I mean, they're huge, right? And so I used 3, and it was perfect for this big pot of soup. Tons of flavor.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm gonna put my vegetables in now. They're soft. I can smell the flavor developing. So I'm gonna put those in my soup now. One of their mantras when we do our soup is that soup is very forgiving. And so it doesn't need to be exact. Most people did soup because they had odds and ends to use, and it was a way to not waste. My grandmother, who is from Ireland, always had a pot of soup on the stove, literally 24 hours a day on very, very low. And when she cooked other meals, she threw in the odds and ends from the meat, from the vegetables, and it was like the endless pot of soup. And what was funny is I just seemed normal to me. And then I had not seen other households do that. The house always smelled great. And then I was reading something about Caitlin Thomas, Dylan Thomas's wife. And there was something about her endless pot of soup. And I thought, oh, it must be, you know, sort of an Irish thing. So anyways, I don't do that, but that was the whole point. And my grandmother's soup always tasted the same. She was just always throwing the same onions, carrots, celery, meats in there. Okay, let's see where we are. We've got our meat and our sauteed vegetables and butter or oil in there. Now we can go ahead and put our beans and our collards. I'm gonna put my beans in first. I did a pound of beans. 4 cans drained is the similar amount.
Monique,
Yeah.
so I sweated the vegetables. Do I just put everything together in this pot, or are we doing it separately?
No, once you've sweated them,
Yeah.
and well, if you want to add your stock, if you don't have your stock going already, I have a separate stock that I threw the meat into a little while ago.
Okay, but
And so now everything's going to be together.
okay, perfect.
So if you have only one pot going, just go ahead and add your stock, your meat, your collards, and your beans to your vegetables.
Thank you.
So I have a question because I'm using the chilies with chipotle.
Yeah.
And is that a flavor that cooks in or cooks out? That is, will it get stronger or will I need to adjust?
I
and
think
add
it's a
more,
pretty
Dominique?
stable flavor. I would taste it in about 5 or 10 minutes and kind of see how it's marrying with the other ingredients in the broth, but it shouldn't reduce in flavor over time. I don't think it'll intensify more than any soup intensifies as the water goes down a little. So in 5 or 10 minutes, that should be a pretty stable flavor. And then you can decide, do I want to add a little more? So I would start with less and then add more if you feel it needs a little more smoke. Again, this is a delicate soup. It's not all smoky. For the people using meat, they're just pulling the smoke flavor out of the meat that's in there. So it's not the dominant flavor, it's a note.
Okay, thank you.
I'm making the vegetarian one too, and I'm just wondering, do we put the whole can in, or just do we try to get the liquid away from the chipotles, particularly not into that smoky flavor?
Deb, tell me if you disagree, but I was suggesting start with like a spoonful of the liquid.
Okay.
And then see. You could take a little and chop up. You're definitely not going to want the whole can. I think it'll probably be too much, but just start and then add, taste a little bit and add.
All right. And
Yeah, but a lot of people aren't familiar with those canned chipotles in adobo. The interesting thing about them, you had asked whether you should get rid of the liquid. Oh no, that is filled with so much flavor. Sometimes you just use that. So you can't go wrong with whatever comes out of that can.
Oh, good. And then were we supposed to put the paprika in already at this point too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, a small amount, and you'll taste it and decide how much more you want to add later. Yep.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
And when I'm cooking for myself, I just use a spoon to taste. When I'm cooking for other people, and I'm trying to bring my stock up to a boil right now, but I'll just pour a little bit on a spoon and then toss that spoon. Now we want to bring it up. If yours is not already hot, bring it up to a boil and then back it to a simmer. And we're pretty much going to be letting it simmer for a little bit. We can start adding a little pepper. And a little bit of thyme. And I am going to run out to my garden. I forgot to get my thyme, so I'll be right back. But you can just use dried thyme if you have that in a can. I mean, you know, a jar. And this calls for 1 tablespoon. I would probably start with a little bit less and taste it myself, but you could also just follow the recipe.
So while the cat's away, the mice can play. What are you all most excited about during this coming week? Anybody have some plans that they want to share?
Deb, can I share something from this morning, kind of looking back? So on Saturday, when we were making soup, some of us were talking about the containers in which we place them. And I realized I had run out of containers and someone had mentioned going to their local supermarket. So this morning I walked over to my local Giant And I said, I'm going to be participating in a group activity to make soup to go to people who have food insecurities. Can I buy 10 quart containers? And the man behind the counter in the deli section said, let me ask my manager. So he goes and he asks Winnie, can we do this? And he'd already packed up the 10 containers. And Winnie came and I repeated this. She said, that is such a wonderful thing. Please take these containers. And we're all getting kind of like weepy about this. She said, I said, well, the soup will have your love as part of it. And she felt so happy that she could do something that contributed this. So just as I am happy to KindWorks for giving me the opportunity to do this small thing, we have our deli counter folks at the Giant who also are part of the process. So great idea and thank you. Maybe we shouldn't all go asking our deli counters at Giant and overwhelm them, but for today, that's what worked. And then I'll go out and I'll buy the additional containers. So just wanted to share that lovely happening.
Thank you, Betsy. I order these from the Webstaurant store since I do this every week. Just want to mention, if you want to join us and you'd like to share your own recipe, you can be a guest chef just like this. I'm not there every week. We rotate someone who wants to share a recipe that they love with other people. On the website,
that in the chat?
Sorry?
Will you post the containers, the link where you get them?
Sure, sure. This is, we label them. Now I have some KindWorks label. You don't need that. You can just use a Sharpie, but the instructions are on the website. We want to say what it is. We want to say if there's allergens like food restrictions for religious or other reasons. If it's vegan, go ahead and say that. This soup should be vegan if you are using vegetable broth and not butter. If you're using butter, then it just put vegetarian. We also put our first name. And I think it's kind of a nice connection with people. I put Dominique R, and especially if you're like Deb, there's a lot of Debs. So, put Deb L. And then we put the date. If I'm not, we like to freeze them. It makes it a lot easier for them to be putting them in the food boxes in terms of keeping them fresh and not spilling. Although these are very liquid tight. This is boiled, so, I know we've all been careful with our hand washing, but be really careful as always, but especially now during COVID with your hand washing and sanitizing when you're packing this up.
Also, I'd like to share that we're having a basement inaugural ball with our kids later.
Oh, tell us more.
We decorated yesterday with gold streamers and all sorts of things, and we even purchased like a light bulb that makes it look like it's a disco ball. So the kids are gonna dress up and we're gonna play some music on Alexa, and we showed them videos of inaugural balls, and so now we're ready for our own.
Well, this is certainly a unique inauguration. I remember my kids are now 22, 20, and 15. But they were sort of, 4, 9, and 11, I think, when Obama was inaugurated. And it was so cold. And we planned it was like a military operation to get down there, stay warm, be able to get down there on the metro. And it all worked out, and I will never forget it. And I will never forget this one either.
We also took our kids downtown, who are now 25 and 20, for the Obama 2008. And do you remember that snowstorm? I mean, half the metro stops were closed. Do you remember this? We tried to take a cab and we had to get out and try to find a metro stop that was working. It was crazy and crazy fun.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, can you hear me?
Yep.
I have to say, I am most looking forward to reading about all the Trump executive orders getting rolled back over the next 2 weeks, or at least a lot of them.
It will be nice. It will be nice. It's not been an easy 2021 so far, but I'm optimistic, and I think people coming into the government have good and open hearts and will rise to the challenge and navigate the difficulties. And I feel more restful in my heart than I have in a while. So I was so excited when KindWorks got asked, along with lots of nonprofits, to do service today and bring people together with that goodness of spirit to honor the inauguration. And people are doing this all over the country with different service projects today, as they normally would. And I just think the resilience that people have shown in order to figure out how to do service together online and less in person, but still serve people in need, I think is wonderful. And I'm happy to be a part of it in a small way.
I'd be interested to know if there's anybody on this call who's like in other parts of the world or the country. I'm in the DC area, but are other people outside of DC? Like, who's the furthest away participating today?
I guess we're all DCites here.
May I ask if you're using the dry time, how much, I'm assuming it's not a tablespoon of dry time, or?
I'd start with a teaspoon. A tablespoon seems like an awful lot to me. I mean, that's the original recipe. It might be great, but I would have a little bit less and then taste it in 10 or 15 minutes.
Thank you.
I confess, when I tested the recipe, I forgot to put thyme in at all, and it was amazing.
Karen, I will say that even though nobody today is from areas farther away, other weeks, I don't know if you were on, we had people from Maine, from New Jersey, from Atlanta. So we're starting to take over the East Coast, but not today. Today, everybody's like focused on their own community, I think.
And
That's
one of our
awesome.
chefs was from another area, like Maine, or I can't remember.
I was going to say about the containers. I got them from Amazon very cheaply, and they seem to be heavy enough to hold a soup. So
I think they're great from Amazon because Deb and I were doing this every week, and Denise and Salma, we went in on an order together because they were cheap on Amazon, and then they were like a third the price on Webstaurant store, even when you factored in the shipping. But we got a box of 240. So most people won't need to do that, but I did post the link.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
A lot of the drop-off points are not today, right? They're different days of the week.
Yep.
Okay.
That gives you time to freeze it too. I really encourage you, if you'd like, we'd love for you to stay connected with KindWorks, not only with this project, but also with other projects, because there are so many different projects. Deb, Salma, maybe can you talk about some of the other projects that are going on during the Kindemic, but also in normal times when we're able to be more in person together?
Yes, absolutely. We recently launched a new project of refurbishing used and old and sometimes even broken computers and giving them to students and families in need, because now it's so clear, even more than before, how the digital divide is keeping people from schooling, from work, and even from contact with others. I mean, look how much we're all on our computers now. So today we have a huge push to collect computers today. There's about 10 locations on our website where you can drop off your computer equipment. But if you can't make it today and want to reach out to me at any other time, we will ask you to double check what you've got to donate against our list on the website of what we can and cannot refurbish. And if you drop off whatever we can refurbish, know that that will go for free to students and families who in our area who don't have. Our connections to these families and students are the Literacy Council of Montgomery County, Montgomery County Public Schools, Linkages to Learning, a lot of organizations that deal with folks, right, having a difficult time trying to make ends meet. So your computers will go to good use, leveling off the digital playing field, but also keeping your electronics out of the what do you call it?
Landfill.
Thank you, landfill. So that's a really great project that will be ongoing, but there's a big, huge push to collect today. Another project that we're doing really in a big way today, but do it every month, are birthday parties for women at 2 local shelters in Montgomery County. So somebody's dropping off a cake or cupcake, somebody's dropping off ice cream, somebody's dropping off party decorations, birthday cards, Target cards for a little small gift for the ladies, bingo prizes, because there'll be a party that includes a bingo night tonight. So a lot of people have helped with that, and that's an ongoing thing. We, in the same way, bring people together to drop off parts of meals at different shelters throughout the year. Those are ways to step in. This project has the unique continuing ability to bring us together to chit chat while we do what we're doing in community for community. So this Saturday afternoon from 5 to 6, I welcome all of you. One other way though that we all the time offer opportunities to volunteer in the community is to support the consolidation hubs that are the 8 community-based neighborhood designated county facilities that collect food and other needed supplies and distribute them out to the families in their communities. They're local, they know the families, they know this one's vegan, this one has diabetes, they know the needs of the individual families. And at these hubs, and through us, you can volunteer to drive home deliveries. So you are contact free when your food, when the what you're going to deliver is loaded into your car, and you're contact free when you drop the box outside someone's home. It's a great way. We know one student who got all of his driving experience by delivering the home goods to home boxes to people in need. What a great way to couple that task with the needed, with helping out in community. You can drive home deliveries. You can work drive-through events where you're outdoors for an hour and a half, putting those food boxes in people's cars, or you can go inside the consolidation hubs and pack the food boxes. All of that's on our website, www.dokindworks. So hopefully you'll find many ways to volunteer through us in the future.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're a little bit behind you, Dominique. So we've just finished with the veggies sweating. Can you remind me what happens next?
Oh yeah, and do you have the recipe from the website as well? Because the recipe's on the KindWorks website. So you can print that if we end before you're finished. And so basically you're gonna throw, once the veggies are sweat, you add the garlic, and then you throw the vegetables, everything in the pot together. The meat has already been in the pot for most people. And in about 10 minutes, we're gonna see if the meat has gotten soft enough to pull off the bone. This may be, I didn't test this on the strict hour when I tested the recipe. Again, we don't need to be finished at 11:30. You might find that this needs to kind of flavor the broth more. But at certain points, you're going to pull, if you're using ham hocks, pull those out. If you're using bigger chunks of meat or the turkey legs, you're going to pull those out and you're going to shred the meat off the bone, or just pull it off the bone into bite-sized pieces and throw the meat back in the pot. And if you have a bone, get rid of that. For me, I'll just be pulling my ham chunks out. But again, these flavors deepen with time. So if you're home enjoying some of the Inaugural stuff online or working later today, just let it simmer for a while. You'll find that every time you taste it, it'll be better. And then at some point, just turn it off and let it sit. And then you can load it into the containers when it's not so hot. But then when you heat it up for dinner, if you're having it for dinner tonight, then you'll taste how the flavors have matured. And feel free to adjust. Like I found with my Better Than Bouillon, I did it by eye. I didn't feel like I had enough stock flavor, so I just added another big tablespoon of it. So feel free to just play with it to your own taste. This, what'll taste good to you will taste good to the people that you're sharing this with. I'd love to just share a little bit. There's a lot of great information on the chat about the other items you could donate to the hub, and also a form. we are tracking the kindemic. We call it contact tracing, but in a happy way. There's a link there. Please put how many quarts you're donating from this and where you're going to take it. It's important as a nonprofit for KindWorks to track the in-kind hours and donations in terms of the impact. It helps us know where we are impacting people's lives. I wanted to let you know about a couple other service projects that KindWorks has done in the past, and I know at least some of these will resume when we're able to be together. This soup project was an idea Deb had because of the pandemic. In February, we had our last refugee meal making. So KindWorks had been working with some of the refugee agencies, coordinating donations to set up apartments for refugees for several years. And they had been partnering with local restaurants that had a cuisine of the refugees, so that when they came in, not only was their kitchen stocked with a lot of basics that they would need, pantry basics, as well as pots and pans, there would be a pre-cooked meal from their culture, so that when they came in from the airport exhausted with their family, they could eat something familiar. And Deb had this idea, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to have volunteers cook this meal? And we're friends, and she knew that I love cooking and I cook a lot of international food. She said, how would you like to coordinate a meal making? So we'd get a little bit of notice saying we're having an Afghan refugee family, or one from El Salvador, or one from Congo, or whatever. We would research some recipes, make a list. People would buy the ingredients, and we would get together, and someone who volunteered their kitchen, we'd prepare the meal together, pack it up in donated serving dishes that the families could keep, and then we would share a meal together and get to know each other and enjoy a new cuisine we had never tasted. And we just loved it. We did it a couple times a month usually, and it was such a nice way to be together and do something fun and do something new. So I'm hoping we can do something like that again when this is all over. But Deb was creatively thinking about how could we maintain that connection that we loved. And she thought of this soup project, and that's how it started. And it's been amazing. Like, I really feel that sense. I look forward to Saturdays, and it's nice because I feel like I'm doing good and I'm cooking a dinner I would have already cooked, just more. And I get to chat with friends, because a lot of times I'm cooking alone and I love cooking with people. So that's an example of how KindWorks builds community while you're doing good. They've done not only the birthday parties or bingo nights at the shelters, they've done preparing a meal for the children's in, I think at NIH or Children's Hospital, I'm not sure. They've worked with populations in the jail. So there are so many opportunities. I encourage you to go to dokindworks.org and sign up for the newsletter. You get it once a month, and you'll have an idea of the many, many kindemic, but also looking forward to post-pandemic service projects where we can be in the same room.
Thank you, Dominique, for that. And I just wanted to add one thing, which is that in addition to all of these projects, what we try and do is share stories of people doing kind acts, because, you know, from reading stories like that, we find inspiration, and it just is sort of sustenance for our soul, a balm for our soul, especially during these difficult times. So I would encourage everybody to visit our social media page, where we share most of these stories, and also to share your own, particularly from this project. You know, who are you sharing this soup with, and what was their reaction, and why did you decide to join us today? You know, what's a particular soup making tradition in your own family? Anything that you'd like to share, we'll send it to our email address, or share it with Deb or Dominique or myself, and we'd love to share your story on our social media as well. Stories make such a big difference, and we're very much about storytelling and inspiration as well.
I'd like to ask a question about the soup, about the spiciness of the soup, because to me, it tastes very spicy. So I added some more water. Should I continue to do that? Because Dominique, you were talking about how it cooks down and becomes more flavorful. That's pretty intense.
I don't think it'll become too much more flavorful. I would just adjust the broth to taste for yourself. And I just added a little salt to mine. I actually added a little bit more ham. I felt like I wasn't getting as much smoky flavor as I wanted in mine. And I added some more pepper. So
Okay.
this is a good time to start to fine tune the seasonings.
Mine is vegetarian, so I think that, I mean, maybe the paprika is just, it's between that and the adobe is very smoky to me. And
Oh,
I
you put both in. Okay, so yeah.
I put a little of the paprika in, and then I put 2 of the adobe peppers in, but did not add any more sauce than what was already on them.
Okay, good. So I would add broth till you like the taste.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I was also using the adobe chilies, and that's just to taste, right? Not the whole can.
Exactly, just to taste. I love chilies, but I don't make it. This can be a very delicate soup, and I think it's nice to be able to taste the greens. And if you put so much chili, it'll be mostly chili, which will be delicious too. So again, I would do it to your taste.
Can you provide any instruction with respect to the ham hock? I haven't really cooked with ham hocks before.
You know, let's see, the recipe itself, again, this is on our website, says
It
to
just
simmer.
says to shred.
Sorry?
Yeah, it doesn't give a lot of detail. I just, a little more detail would be helpful.
So basically you're cooking the whole ham hock in the broth for about 40 minutes. And what that's going to do is soften the meat so that it'll come off the bone for you. And then you're going to pull out the ham hock or pull out the turkey leg, put it on a cutting board till it's cool enough to handle. And you're going to pull off manually the meat. Discard things like skin or anything you wouldn't want to eat. You're basically trying to pull the meat off the ham hock and put it back. Now, if you're using a turkey leg or you're using, like me, just big chunks of ham, you're going to have more meat. But a lot of times these soups were a way to use, you've had your ham, you know, in farms, you know, you're trying to use all of your piece. So the ham hocks are there because they have really great flavor from the bone and from the smokiness and from the meat. And so you're cooking the flavor into your soup and then pulling off the meat and discarding everything. But it takes about 40 minutes. And I think we've been simmering for not quite a half an hour yet. So it takes about 40 minutes for the meat to be soft enough to do that. And don't feel like you have to do it before we get off. If you want to just leave it there for a while, let it cool in the soup enough to handle, then you can do that. These soups always improve with time. And so I would just let it simmer as long as you want to, even after we're off. We're going to get off at 11:30 just to respect everybody's time. But, you know, don't feel rushed. Wait till you feel like it's cooked enough flavor in there.
Dominique, the soup improves with time, THYME or TIME, or both?
TIME or both.
Okay, thanks. Louisa Tran is telling everyone she made the vegan version and used 3/4 of a teaspoon of smoked paprika and 1 tablespoon of low salt Cajun seasoning, and she loves that taste.
Great.
So that's good to know.
Hey,
Lynn,
Dominique, can I ask you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I bought a pre-cooked ham and I wasn't sure if I should chop it up and cube it before I add it, or if I should put it in and let it simmer to get the flavors. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be kind of messy if you cook it and then take it out. So why not just chop it and put it in now? But you're going to want to let yours sit longer because you want that ham flavor to be in that soup longer than just 10 more minutes.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lynn Gertzog, are you on still? No. Okay. Never mind.
Dominique, this is Jenny. I put in a question about a different kind of ham bone. That was all I could find. Do you think you could address that question from the chat, please?
Can you just say it out loud, Jenny?
Yeah, just ask it.
Okay, so we couldn't find either smoked turkey legs or ham hocks. So all we could find was smoked pork neck bones. So those have gone into the pot, but now I'm worried that maybe there's some like delicate neck bones that I'm going to have to fish out. Do you have any knowledge about using neck bones?
I have never used those before, so I would just pull some ladles out and make sure they haven't come apart because we don't want to have little neck bones in there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll add flavor and deliciousness to it. I would having never cooked, I just actually don't know the answer.
They were part of what I cooked with last time, and it's absolutely fine, Jenny. At least what I had was actually quite large, and it stayed together, but imparted a ton of flavor. So you should be fine.
Great. I was just worried. I want to make sure that, nobody gets a bone. That could be dangerous. Yeah.
No, it should stay together, I think.
Thanks.
Hey, Deb, it's Lynn. I'm still on.
Oh, good.
I was
Everybody,
muted.
I wanted to introduce you to Lynn Gertzog, who is a volunteer coordinator for a different one of the consolidation hubs that we were talking about. And they have an immediate need tomorrow and Wednesday. So she's going to introduce that to you all and share a link in the chat in case somebody wants to put some time into helping one of the other consolidation hubs. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Deb. Yeah, this is the Mid-County Hub. It's at Hughes United Methodist Church in Wheaton. It's at the corner of Georgia Avenue and Pliers Mill Road. And on Tuesday mornings, there's always a big food distribution, a drive-through food distribution event, and a couple more volunteers are needed tomorrow morning for that. It is an outdoor activity. I can put up the link. We do ask that people sign up in advance. So there's a sign up Genius link, which I can include in the chat. And on Wednesday afternoons, there is a need for a couple more volunteer drivers. Contactless, just, pulling up, having your car, your vehicle loaded with bags of groceries, and then you'll get a list of addresses to deliver to, and that takes about an hour. The opportunity tomorrow morning is a bit longer. It's 8:30 to noon, so it's it's a decent chunk of time, but very worthwhile. I think every Tuesday they get about 500 folks who come through in a 2 to 3 hour period to pick up food. So I'll put those links in the chat, and whether it's this week or another week, it's an ongoing thing. So every week there's a need. So thanks, Deb.
I'm sure.
Lynn, do they also need any of the soups?
Not that I know of. We haven't talked about that, so I can ask them. I'll ask them, but that's not something we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just delivering, non-perishable and produce. I don't know that they're doing any cooked meals.
Okay. Monica has a question that is, should she put the whole sprigs of thyme or take off the little leaves? Dominique can tell you the expert opinion, but what I understand is you take the little leaves off and then you're good to go. If you put the sprigs in, then you take them out after you're done cooking.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
That's what I would do. And it's occurring to me that last time when I tested this, because I use my Instant Pot a lot, I did it in an Instant Pot, which makes me feel like just tasting mine, it's taking longer to develop the flavors. So I'm just going to suggest we're pretty much done besides the little final seasoning. I would let this simmer for even though it says 40 minutes, I'd let it go for another, 40 minutes or an hour on low, and then maybe just shut it off, let it cool. I knew someone, it was actually someone I met who lived at a friend's house in their basement, rented their basement. It was a rodeo cowboy. And he would cook us chili or soup. And he'd say, it's going to be better tomorrow because all the spices marry together overnight. And so the cooling and then the reheating creates a different flavor profile. So just be patient with it. I would let it go for longer than when we're coming off. And I'm excited to have it for dinner tonight and to freeze some.
Well, thank you, Dominique. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. It's been so much fun seeing your new faces and talking to some of you. We are, as Dominique said, doing this every Saturday from 5 to 6. You don't need to sign up. Unlike today, you can just get the information off our website and join us whenever you'd like. And we do, again, just ask you to please report into us where you are spreading this pandemic using the link that's now in the chat and will also be on our website. We'd love to know where your soups are going, and stay in touch. Like Salma said, tell us your stories. What happened when you gave someone a homemade quart of soup? What was their reaction? How did it make your day? Like Betsy shared this morning, participating in this project, whether with us now or before or after. So thank you so much. We're just going to kind of peter out during the next few minutes. Feel free to stay on and chit chat or hang up when you're ready. Let your soup finish. Remember to label it all, and remember to enjoy your week. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. As we're signing off, I'll just mention that right after this session, we'll add something on our Facebook page about the soup for people who want to coordinate. If somebody's driving it somewhere and wants to take a few other people's soup or vice versa, we'll just put a link about the project on our Facebook page. So please like us on Facebook at Do Kind Works. And we can help coordinate sort of getting the soup where it needs to be. Thanks, everyone.
Just to say that the sign up genius for it seems to be broken. Is this information on the regular KindWorks website for the Wednesday and Tuesday events?
No, it isn't. Go to, actually, if you could send me an email, how do you pronounce your name? Alalde?
Olaide.
Alaidi. If you could send me an email at deb.lang@DoKindWorks, or however you originally communicated with me to be on the Zoom today, I'll connect you with Lynn Gertzog. The Tuesday and Wednesday events are not KindWorks projects, but they are hub projects, and we're happy to help, connect you, but I don't have them.
Okay. And I think somebody reshared the link, so one is working now. Yeah, okay.
The link on, see if that one works.
Yeah, Cheryl, yours works. Perfect.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. Thanks, Cheryl. Olaidi, thank you for joining us. I hope we see you again soon.
Sure.
Thank
no
you.
problem. This
And
was
would
fun.
love to
Thank
see
you.
on Saturdays, because we can chat more and get to know each other. We actually just chat a lot. We just couldn't do that because we had 100 people signed up, and I saw at least 70 people on at a time. And I know a number of people who cooked, but did it before because they couldn't join us. So I'm guessing we probably have, 350 to 400 soup quarts going out just from this 1 hour.
Amazing. All right. Mwah. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.